Call the Germantown School District Board of Education meeting to order September 16th at 7 p.m. here at the PAC located the north end of the high school. We'll call the meeting to order. I'll ask you to stand for a pledge of allegiance if you are able, in a brief moment of silence as we reflect on some of the tragic events that occurred throughout the country over this last week.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 1A, official meeting notification. Dr. Witter.
Yes, public notice of all meetings has been given by communication from the superintendent's office to the public, to those news media who have requested such notices, and to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Northwest Now, Express News, and West Bend Daily News. Public notice has also been posted in schools throughout the district and on the Germantown School District website.
Thank you. Item 1B, roll call, Mr. Barney.
Ewert.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Barney is here. Loth.
Here.
Pollock.
Here.
Higginbotham.
Here.
Boyer.
Here.
Thank you. Item 2, approval of agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Mr. Barney with the motion, Mr. Boyer with the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we have an approved agenda. Item 3, reports. A, District Administrator update, Dr. Reuter.
Thank you. We are now in our third week of school as we kicked off the school year. Pre-session had a theme related to shared mission. Thank you to the board members who were present for our district kickoff, where you heard from myself and other district administrators and the work that and our focus for the year. Teachers were able to use the first 2 days of in-service time for getting their classrooms ready and prepared for the school year, meeting with their teams, and then Mr. Miziak and Mrs. Cole provided some professional development the following week, and then we gave the teachers time the last day of in-service to, again, be prepared for when our kids came September 2nd. I think almost every board member was present for the first day of school to visit our schools and tour and see the action happen. And as we stated, they showed up. The kids were here, and we were able to start the school year with a few hiccups, a few busing issues, but our sites and our principals and staff have rectified that with Right Way. So we're often in going. Third Friday counts coming up. So it's kind of crazy how fast you prepare all summer, and we just get back in the game. This year we have 2 representatives from the district taking part in Leadership Germantown, which is run through the Chamber of Commerce. I sit on that board as well as the committee that oversees that. Many of us at this table have been graduates of that program. It's a great opportunity for the district to have representation, to not only hone in on leadership skills with those individuals, which this year are Dave Smith, our high school principal, and Justin Marion, our new communications manager. But it's also a great networking opportunity to better understand the community, the village, the businesses, and the public sector of Germantown. So we look forward to both of them. Last week, Thursday, was their first session. I was able to kick that off for the chamber and welcome our 15 new inductees into Leadership Germantown, and they'll be working on service projects as well this year. And then last and most importantly, I'd like to, if you haven't seen on Facebook yet, but publicly congratulate Eden Jones and Daniel Zhu for their being this year's National Merit Scholars. That's a prestigious award. They represent Germantown and Germantown High School. It's related to their PSAT, their PSAT and SAT scores. They're up as finalists now for nationally, and they'll look at their resume and repertoire of their academic excellence against others in not only the state but nationally for possible additional scholarships for college. So congratulations. Just being a National Merit Scholar finalist is prestigious as can be. Most districts have less than a handful of kids, and so to both of those students, congratulations. That's what I have.
Absolutely. Thank you. 3B, Village Germantown Liaison reports. Mr. Pollock? for Parks and Recs,
Yep.
please.
Actually, we did not meet in August, so I don't really have an update, but we do meet tomorrow at 5:30 at Village Hall. A couple items on the agenda is the Fireman's Park Outdoor Pavilion, the Fireman's Park Fire Station remodel, and getting an update on the 2026 budget.
Thank you. Mr. Voyer, Economic Development Commission.
No updates other than an election yesterday.
You were elected by the full village board,
Correct.
or approved, I should say, by the full village board.
And our first meeting is October 14th.
Fantastic.
We'll meeting together.
Thank you for serving in that capacity with us. And Planning Commission, for myself, 9/8, September 8th at 6:30 PM, we met. One item of note, strong note for us to keep in mind was a discussion-only topic of a apartment development looking to go in on the corner of Lannon and Mequon, the southwest corner of Lannon and Mequon. This proposal had come before the board before as a 42-unit development. It has been reproposed as a 35-unit mixture of 2- and 3-bedroom rental units. I will say it was exciting for me in the fact that not only did the village in their presentation, the village administration, their presentation to that commission, as well as the developer in their proposal and presentation, utilized the MD Rofer's enrollment report of their own volition. So that tool that we invested in is being used not only by the village, but also the developers of their own free will, which is fantastic. I believe it's fantastic that they've chosen to utilize it in that manner. They were able to provide this development they believe to be about 4 students. I would say this is more typical of kind of the older development style that we have, that actually kind of received a increased or an inflated number of students, given that it's 2- and 3-bedroom larger. But they're right in with what the range that Rofer's would prescribe for this type of a development. So.
It's great to see that, one, we acted as a local municipality to have a research base to help make decisions for not only the district, but inform the village, but that now that people from outside the village, the variables are going to stay the same, right? It's not their report, a research report, but we're grounded, so it's great to hear that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's just gotten that traction in that way. So thanks for everyone involved in supporting that process, because it's coming to fruition as a useful tool for all involved. That's all I have in regards to the Planning Commission of note as far as impact on the school district. We'll go to report 3C, School Board President Report. That's for myself. And on topic, it says Building Liaison Designations. I'm going to call an audible on this, and I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days. And this is a project myself and Dr. Reuter have talked about for probably about a year now. And how do we make it work, and what's the appropriate level of involvement? And I'm excited to bring it forward, but I'm going to audible to building ambassadors, so it's board ambassadors to these buildings.
Sure.
So each one of these board members seated up here is going to be assigned a building to be an ambassador from the board and network with the local leader, the leadership within the building, along with the community partners, PTA, any other organizations that kind of come to mind or play into those buildings. So the assignments are going to be as follows. For the high school, given its size, we're going to have 2. Mr. Loth and Mr. Pollock will work in tandem with that building. I will take care of the middle school. MacArthur, we are going to go with Mr. Voyer, and given Mr. Pollock's long-term enrollment and involvement in that building, he's going to kind of provide a bridge year for us. And I think that's helpful given some of the current scenarios that have played out in that manner. County line, I've asked Mr. Barney. Rockfield will be Mr. Brown, and Amy Bell will be Ms. Higginbotham. I'm excited for this. It's simply to have these board members be present in these buildings with these leaders and kind of provide that connection, communication avenue that I think we kind of need at this point in the district. So I'm excited for that to take forward. Mr. Reuter, I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, I think yesterday, Mr. Ewert and I, in our weekly meeting, we're on a rotation. We meet every Monday, as I think all of you know, as a board, and we've shared that publicly as well. We've decided not to meet just in my office, but weekly we're meeting at each building. We have a rotation of buildings, and we are able to stop in some classrooms, talk with building leadership, and then do the work that we need to do. But yesterday, Mr. Ewert was able to talk with Mrs. Guerin and share kind of the vision of this work, and she was very excited to be able to open the doors, not just on the first day of school to board members, but for Mr. Ewert being the ambassador now, to be able to promote all the good that's going on in the building. And so the board, it's not just at presentations, but in your capacity, if you're able to connect a few times a year with the principal and really understand what's going on in that building and come back, and we'll have this as a standing agenda item, any reports of, hey, I went to this event at MacArthur, I talked to the county line principal, and this is the good stuff that's going on. It's an opportunity for board engagement with our school sites.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions or thoughts on that? I appreciate everyone's involvement in that, and we'll continue
I
to.
think Ms. Higginbotham
Oh,
has a question.
Higginbotham does. So I guess my question is like the parameters, what does that actually look like as a board member? Because this is kind of coming out now without a whole lot of information on what you're actually looking for. Because obviously we all have different schedules, we have different ideas on what this looks like. And again, when we're talking about consistency, so that one principal isn't saying, mine's not doing this, and another one is saying, well, mine is amazing. So,
Yeah, I think.
it's just trying to like nail this down to more of something concrete versus it being completely
Sure.
abstract, which is what it feels like right now.
Yeah, I think we can talk about that further. I think everyone's going to kind of own that role in their own way and build that communication level within those buildings.
But that would be the point.
In
You know
the
what
way
I'm
that
saying?
works,
You
yeah.
have, 7 different personalities up here, 7 different ideas of what that looks like, and you have one principal that feels like, yeah, mine's doing great, and another one, again, personality types, but not having the same understanding of what the goal is. Timetables, there's a whole lot that goes into that. So I just think having it more concrete on what we're looking for, and having the principals also how they're going to be using that ambassador, so they understand what that looks like also.
Sure.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways you can approach it. There's a lot of ways we can information share. I think I shared some of that with the board in the process that I'm going to use in the middle school. It just depends on what that building has going on. Is it a matter of reporting back to us, hey, Building X has these events occurring, if you can attend or would like to attend, or, hey, discuss some conversation with the PTA and there's concern around this, and then we can loop that information back to Dr. Reuter, the rest of the board, whatever director in the buildings that need it. It's just a simple touch point, right, and to build that partnership within the community of the district.
I would say, Ms. Higginbotham, to your question, the bare minimum would be just reaching out to the principal and saying, hey, I'm your ambassador. Do you have a few minutes to chat? Tell me about what's going on at Amy Bell. What are some of the big events this year? So if there's a possibility it works in your schedule to be present at trunk or treat or whatever might be going on at that school, and also be able to highlight and report back monthly, this is what's going on at Amy Bell if you're not aware, to the general community. I think that would be the minimum, just so there's a connection from board to building level.
Right, which is understandable. Again, it's not like I'm trying to do the bare minimum.
No,
I'm
no,
trying
I'm
to
just saying
figure out
that-
like what this looks like.
Yeah, I've worked
so
in other
that we're
districts
not
where
all
they've
over the
had
map.
these positions with board members, and it's really as to the level of in-depth you want to get into it, but it's just knowing that, hey, this is kind of the school I'm earmarking for the year. So, because we're invited to a lot of things, right? And it's hard to go to everything. This kind of gives you that, for this year, I'm going to really hone in on the school that I've been designated.
Any other questions? Thank you. Item 4, citizen comment. I'm being told we have none. All right, 5, consent agenda. Take a motion.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Now, Mr. Barney with the motion, Mr. Brown with the second. Any discussion?
I will read the
Donations, please.
Donations, Mr. Barney.
Thank you.
This evening, we have a $750 anonymous donation to Germantown Girls Golf, a $250 donation to Girls Swim and Dive from One Collision County Line, $500 anonymous donation to Girls Swim and Dive, a $1,000 donation to Girls Swim and Dive from Racine Toothtown Dentistry, $1,000 donation to Germantown Girls Swim and Dive from Jack C. Moss Trucking Incorporated, $300 donation to Girls Swim and Dive from Wisconsin Sports Performance, $500 donation to Germantown Girls Swim and Dive from Lynch Motors West Bend, $500 donation to Germantown Palms Team from Creekside Printing, $1,000 donation to Germantown Palms from Master Spas of Wisconsin, and a $5,000 donation to Germantown Palm Team from the Pollitt Family Foundation.
Thank you. As always, it's an impressive list. Just for clarification, consent agenda A, approval of August 19, 2025 meeting minutes. B, approval of August 26, 2025 meeting minutes, open session only for closed session. C, approval of August 28, 2025 meeting minutes, open session for closed session, open session only for closed session. And D, approval of teacher contracts. E, approval of teacher resignations. And F, approval of donations. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes. 6, Teaching and Learning Committee. Ms. Higginbotham.
The Teaching and Learning Committee met on September 9th. The meeting centered around a discussion on the 25-26 professional development days. This year, Jake Miziak and Katie Cole were able to structure the professional development days in order to ensure certain topics would not be ordered or overlapped, in order that all staff would be able to attend certain topics on pupil service training and also teaching and learning. First 2 days were light in order to organize and welcome parents and students. After that, kind of concentrated on the importance of collaboration between the principals, administration, and then teachers. Goals regarding academic achievement and growth were identified. Once those were identified, they created a professional learning community, which included principals and teachers, which teachers were able to collaborate effectively on what and how they wanted the students to learn. The ultimate goal is to increase consistency and expectations across all schools in the district, allowing parents, teachers, and students alike to be able to walk in any school in the district and have the same understanding of expectations. Staff was also given basic training on NextPath and its early use. The capabilities and use of the program will continue to grow throughout the year. Basic medical training and information was given to all staff for the start of the year. Trauma-sensitive training was broken into 2 parts. The first part gave out background information on the impact and prevalence of trauma. It laid out basic strategies that can be applied to most students in order to actively de-escalate and crisis prevention. The second part of the training will be presented this month. In special ed services, focus was placed on college and career-ready IEPs. The intent was set high expectations for students that are specific to their goals, accommodations, and their strategies. The district continues to keep cross-district consistency a priority. Well-defined goals, the collaboration of teachers and administration, cross-district and universal messaging has been shown to positively impact students' achievements and growth. And that was all information. We have nothing to vote on. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Higginbotham. 7, Personnel Committee. Mr. Brown.
The Personnel Committee met on September 2nd. The Director of Human Resources, Martin Castro, provided an update on teacher resignations, which there were none at that time. Dr. Castro then provided an update on teacher contracts. There were contracts, and they were brought forward tonight in the consent agenda. Martine then provided a staffing update. The new marketing manager of marketing and communications had started, and the dean of students. Marketing communications is Justin Marion. Justin lives in the area and joins us from the Fond du Lac School District. I believe they have about 17 schools up there, so he's excited to be joining Germantown, which he has some connections with. And the new dean of students is at Kennedy Middle School. That's Mr. Ben
Hagenbach, and he joins us after spending, I believe, about 12 years over in the Mequon School District. He's going to be Dean of Students, which is a unique role because it kind of fosters promotion or opportunities for moving up within the district, which is something that we strive to do. Then Dr. Castro led a discussion on the MacArthur principal hiring timeline. I encourage everybody to go out to the Germantown School District website, go to the Board of Education, and play that video on YouTube, because Dr. Martin and Chris all spent about 35 minutes going over a detailed timeline of what took place for the Kennedy Middle School hire. And as of September 2nd, when we held the meeting, that was Dr. Barron's first day on the job. So we visited him that morning, and it looked like it was off to a good start. And everything was information only in that meeting, so that's it.
Thank you. I would agree. I encourage anyone that has questions to go review that video. It answers quite a few of them, so. 8, Building and Grounds Committee. Mr. Pollack.
Thank you. We met earlier this evening. I went through a handful of items. Mr. Lord provided us his monthly work order completion report, of which there were approximately 160 items, 3 of which were high priority. All of those items were completed in fewer than 45 days. He also gave us somewhat of a final report on the rainwater intrusion because of the historic rainfall from earlier in August. We were very fortunate as a district in that while the rainfall did have impact on the majority of our buildings, generally speaking, the damage was somewhat minimized and somewhat isolated. So we did have intrusion in most of our buildings. We were fortunate with a couple of buildings not to have found any issues. Ultimately, as far as the impact that it had as we approached the first day of school, there really was none. If anything, there was one classroom, I believe at County Line, it was an art classroom, that was impacted for the first day of school due to a floor tile issue, but was quickly resolved. As far as the 25-26 school year readiness, we were all ready for the first day of school on September 2nd, but all summer long, Frank and his crew were working diligently to restore, repair, revamp facilities to provide a safe, clean, and functional return. Top to bottom cleaning, identification and repairing all necessary furniture, revamping interior, exterior spaces, those items like painting or general construction, etc. Were all identified, were all worked on, prioritized, and completed. Next meeting, he'll provide a project recap to our committee. As far as operational expense projects, Frank introduced us to basically a new report that he'll be providing us on a regular basis. Basically, what this will do for us is we'll leverage the facilities condition assessment priority level 1 crosswalk. We'll be generating, or he and his group will be generating a working document to identify those priorities and needs, and creating what we're calling an operational expense or OpEx project report, similar to our 5-year capital improvement plan. Basically, this document will keep track for us all of those particular items, updates, other information, and basically help support and ensure the tracking of and progression of those different maintenance and repair items throughout the district. Lastly, we reviewed the 2025 to 2030 5-year capital improvement plan, reviewing what is planned for the next handful of years as far as those major capital improvements that we are planning for. Ultimately, the committee discussed, asked questions, and made a motion which was approved to send this item over to the Finance Committee this evening for their review and approval. And that would be it from Buildings and Grounds.
Thank you. Looks like everyone's passed the buck on to Finance to bring a few motions forward for us tonight. Mr. Loth, item 9, Finance Committee.
Yes, the Finance Committee met earlier this evening here in the PAC. The meeting began at 5:50 p.m. Full board item 9A, committee meeting update. We did the consent of vouchers for August and September. Brittany answered a few questions like she usually does. This isn't a case of let's stump Brittany. It's just we ask questions that we think the average citizen might answer if they looked through our vouchers and what the expenses are for. Next item is full board item 9B, 5-year capital improvement plan. We covered it very well in building and grounds, so I don't think there's anything more to cover here. I'll just make a small comment on it that each year for the next 5 years, we're trying to hold the 5-year capital plan to under $750,000 per year. It's interesting that a school could have that much maintenance or that many additions, but it does happen. You know, the maintenance budget and keeping things up as they need to be kept up is an expensive proposition. So that'll be just under $750,000 per year for the next 5 years. So we bring a motion with a positive recommendation to the full Board of Education to approve the 5-year capital improvement plan as presented.
Comes forward with a positive recommendation, does not require a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes.
And last item, we adjourned at 6:05 p.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 10, new business. A, discussion only on the 24-25 seclusion and restraint report. Ms. Katie Cole.
Hello. Each year, a report of the seclusion and restraint incidences from the prior year has to be prepared and presented to the school board, so I have that for you tonight. In your packet, the first page is what you have typically seen, which is just a chart showing the numbers for this year, and then what's presented up on the screen. With the help of my pupil services coordinator, we have the past 3 years just to be able to show some historical data along with graphs so that you can kind of see what that's looked like over time. I'm going to start with the data from this past year, just review the chart. Along the top are the schools within our district. Also, there are two other columns. TRS stands for the Richardson School, and that's a school that we have students alternatively placed, and then CISA is another column, and that's because we have students in a CISA building as well. So for the first row is the number of instances of seclusion. So you can see that Amy Bell, there were 8, County Line 1, MacArthur 7, Rockfield 5, and then the rest of the buildings had 0. We also look at the total number of students that those include. So for that 8, there were 3 students that were involved, and all 3 of those students were students with disabilities. For the 1 incident at County Line that was involving 1 student, that student also was a student with disabilities. The 7 at Mac was involved with 1 student, again a student with disabilities. And then at Rockfield it was 2 students, and both of those students also were students that have disabilities. And then underneath there are the number of physical restraints. So I'll go down Amy Bell. There were 8 that involved 3 students, and again, those 3 students are students that have disabilities. County Line, there were 0 incidents, 9 at MacArthur involving 1 student with disabilities, 3 at Rockfield involving 2 students that have disabilities, and then 2 at Kennedy involving 1 student. That student also has disability. And then Germantown High School had 1 physical restraint with 1 student, and that student did not have a disability. So we track that data, like you said, in the preceding pages or what's up on the screen. You can see the number of incidents last year, so those total number of incidents have reduced. The number of students is similar. It was 6 last year, 7 this year, and those students also from last year, all but 1 were students with disabilities, and all 7 of those this year are students that have IEPs. That information's broken down again, just like I shared, but again, there's the historical data and then graphs that can kind of show what that looks like over time. Just tried to include that. I know we had a large number of incidents last year that I spoke about, so I wanted you to be able to see that comparison. And just a little context too, based on having the number of incidents, we did create a plan around that. So I just wanted to share a couple of items around that. So with the universal instruction for all students is where that trauma-sensitive school training comes into place. So that is the training that counselors and the pupil services, myself and our coordinator attended, that we are now providing training to all staff. And strategies within that are, de-escalation and different things that you can do for all students, which is definitely what we want to put those tools in the hands of our staff to help reduce the possibility of these incidents. Thinking kind of like a tiered approach then for our students with special needs, we do have all of our special education teachers, our administrators, and then the building level pupil service staff, which would be our school psychologists, social workers, our counselors. They all are crisis trained. So we did all of that prior to school starting in August. And then last year at our elementary, we provided de-escalation training in-house. So it's a portion of what that crisis prevention training is, but the de-escalation strategies are really what the important part is for our staff to have. So we provided that in 2 parts to our elementary special education support staff last year. And that's something that will continue. When we have new staff members, we want to make sure we review those strategies. So those are some things that we have done and are doing this school year, just for you to understand some of the plan that we have around the seclusion restraint. And then for student specific, since those numbers involve such a small number of students, we do have specific behavior plans for students. Our psychologists are trained in what's called functional behavioral assessment, which helps us figure out the function of a behavior, and then we create behavior plans around that and implement those with consistency for students so that we can teach skills around behavior. So I know I gave you a lot of information, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Brown?
I have a question regarding the first chart that you brought up. And I'll take a look at the MacArthur column there. Are the number of incidents of seclusion during the previous school year mutually inclusive or mutually exclusive of the number of incidents where physical restraints were used, i.e., there's 7 and 9. Was it possible that of those 7, they escalated up to?
Correct.
So do we know how many of those physical restraint items were strictly went right to restraint before seclusion, or?
Right, so the incidents of seclusion, for that specifically, those 7 would include then restraint along with it, like you were just stating. So it would not necessarily start with that, but within the incident, both of those things occurred.
Okay.
Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, it is, but I don't know if that leads to further questions regarding that number then. Because there's 2 extra where we just went right to physical restraint. Of the 7 then, how many of those ended with physical restraint? Do you know?
Right, so that's not necessarily ended, because within an incident, it may not be that you start with a
I'll
seclusion.
say
But yes,
escalated.
the 7 included, within the 9 seclusion, the 7 seclusions were included within that number.
So I guess then I'll rephrase the question and say then, the incidence of seclusion, do we do that to try to de-escalate it before it gets to?
Correct. I can talk in generalities. Typically, if a student is escalated and they're in a safe space, we don't want them to leave that space. So that may be when a seclusion occurs, where the definition of seclusion is just not allowing the student to go to another space. You're keeping them from leaving wherever they are.
Right, but
that would be a less restrictive than doing a restraint, where
Sure.
we're minimizing movement.
But we're
Correct.
not,
So that would be a step to de-escalate. It could be a step to de-escalate before it leads to a restraint.
Right, so we're not saying that all 7 of the incidences of seclusion actually went to physical restraint, are we?
Not necessarily.
Okay,
I
that's
don't-
my
I don't
question.
have
Do we know
the-
how many of the seclusions ended well? That they didn't go to a physical restraint? Is seclusion working?
I would have to dig into the specific student. We do have records for all of them. I would have to dig in there to see how many of them
Okay, I mean,
resulted
it's-
in that. Seclusion isn't necessarily an intervention that, I mean, that can de-escalate. But there's other things you would do to help de-escalate a student. That's not a strategy that we use to de-escalate a student.
Okay,
It's a safety precaution.
Correct.
So-
This happens when there's a risk of safety.
okay.
For the individual as well as the others, students and or staff in the
Right.
proximity of that student.
So we're saying that 2 of those incidences, we didn't have a chance to seclude?
No, you don't automatically go to seclusion and then restraint.
It's
That's
not
how-
progressive
That's not how
No.
something like this
It's
works.
case by case.
Correct.
So-
It's
Right,
not a
so-
progression, and it may
Not
be,
every one of those 7s turned to a 9, and not
Right.
every one of those 9s ever involved a 7.
Right,
but there could be both
They're
within
different
an
tools in the
incident.
toolbox, given the situation.
right, so I'm just interested
we-
in how many of them did escalate to that, or, I just want to make sure that, first of all, they were not mutually exclusive, that there's 16 separate incidences.
They could have both occurred at the
Right,
same
so they're not
time. They
mutually
can.
exclusive.
But
An incident could check multiple boxes.
correct. You could have an incident where there was seclusion and a restraint that both happened, and it would be counted for both of those columns. So it doesn't mean that those are doubled up. It could mean that, five of them are also part of that 9. I don't know for sure.
Okay,
without
that-
having
And
that's
an
all I was
example of
asking.
that, correct me if I'm wrong, Katie, is if a student is secluded, but now they're trying to physically harm
Correct.
themselves, then the adult would intercede and restrain them. That would be an example of seclusion that led to restraint where they are mutually exclusive.
I don't think I would define it as seclusion led to restraint. It was
No,
during
it was
seclusion,
needed.
restraint was necessary.
Correct.
Given actions
Where
involved.
that would double up then.
The training, restraint is the very last thing that you would do, and you only do that if the student is going to be a harm to themselves or to others. Otherwise, we can allow a student to de-escalate in many ways. That's the last resort if there's a safety concern.
Yep, got it, thank you.
Yeah.
Is this the first year that we've started the year with professional development, kind of addressing the medical, the trauma-sensitive training, right at the start of the school year versus?
We
kind of
did provide the medical training the same way last year as we did this year. And the crisis prevention training, it did not occur in August. We had a group.
Previously.
Correct, previously. This was the first year we did all of it prior to school. Last year, we had a group that was trained in December and a group in March. With that being said, the training lasts for a period of time. So you're not expired or lapsed if you don't start in August, but the philosophy is that we want to make sure all of our training is taken care of prior to students starting. So that's why we moved for that to be in August this year. And we have the ability with our pupil service coordinator as our trainer. She's able to provide that training for staff prior to school starting.
Obviously, we don't have a lot of data because we just started the training with the trauma-sensitive. But we did start it in, you said December?
That was for the crisis prevention. You are correct, where the trauma-sensitive schools training is brand new. So that was the first August training on the 25th. That was the first training that we've done in the district for all staff since I've been here. We might have had pockets of people trained prior, but not all staff. So that will be completed at the end of this month on September 29th, will be the second part.
It want to be interesting to see if the impact of that throughout the district.
Yes.
Anyone else have some questions? If not, I do. Seeing none, let's start the conversation, or continue the conversation here. Do we know the correlation of these incidents to students with prior disciplinary issues, IEPs, and I will say IEPs of behavioral nature, not educational nature. Because
Yeah,
there's
so
a difference
stu-
there.
Yes, so I would say there's a correlation with students, we can see there is with students with disabilities that would include behaviors within their disability, whether it's a disability-related need, where we have goals for that. And so when we have a student, I explained it a little bit, but when there's behaviors, we would have a behavior intervention plan for that student. But if we start to see a pattern behavior, the first thing that our team would do would be to reconvene our IEP team and use that team to make sure that we have our goals and services aligned appropriately so that we are targeting the right behaviors to reduce those incidents.
Would it be fair to say, Mrs. Cole, that after a seclusion and/or restraint, that the IEP team would reconvene to revisit that behavior intervention plan?
Correct. So anytime there is a seclusion or restraint, there is a debrief afterward with the team. There is mandatory communication to the family, and then there has to be a follow-up action. That's part of the seclusion restraint forum, part of what we do for the state. And if the student has an IEP, reconvening that IEP meeting would be something that would have to occur so that we are addressing the need for the student.
So the initial debrief takes place with what members, what team?
For anybody who was involved within the incident, which for a number of reasons. One, we want to kind of go through and see what potentially could have been done. You know, did we follow de-escalation? You have to go through all of those pieces of what was tried in order to de-escalate. Just look at the situation, make sure we were following plans. It's really to make sure there's consistency there, and to make sure that the IEP team wants to get back together, like I said, to make sure that plan is appropriate to meet the needs. If there's a pattern of incidents occurring, that means we need to do something differently or adjust something. That's why it's a requirement.
Yeah,
It's a
so-
piece of that.
So there's multiple teams involved there, and the team would be as organic as whatever staff member were involved in the initial incident.
Yes, that would
and
happen
who
within
lead-
24 hours of the incident.
Who leads that debrief?
Typically, it's the building principal or a pupil service member, like a school psychologist. If there's a need, our department can come and assist with that, but really it should be the building leader leading that debrief. Because ultimately, they should make sure that all of those behavior plans and things are shared with all staff.
And we're saying that happens every time and has happened every time?
That should be the step that happens every time. It's marked on the seclusion restraint form.
That the debrief occurred?
That the debrief should have occurred. I do have I get those forms, but,
And secondary to the debrief process, right, the analysis of the incident, if there's an IEP in place, there's a secondary convening of the IEP team?
yes, which
Or-
doesn't happen that moment, but it should happen in the very near future, that they're revisiting that student's plan.
I think the key to when revisiting those behavior intervention plans is to what Mrs. Cole said, is there are steps for de-escalation in that plan, and the key is that the team is revisiting almost like an autopsy, that we follow those steps versus deterring from it, because we have to ensure that the plan has validity to work versus we're doing something different. Now we have data that can't correlate with what the expectation was. So it's the education, it's the LEA's responsibility, and when I say LEA, that's the principal who's in charge of the IEP from a legal standpoint as a representative of the district to ensure that those steps are followed by all team members, including themselves.
Right, that debrief's so important after the incident, because if you see that something within the behavior plan wasn't followed, there wasn't consistency with it, that needs to happen. To Dr. Reuters, you don't want to change a plan that wasn't implemented properly, if that makes sense. So you have to debrief the incident to make sure there wasn't, inadvertently triggering something that we know is a trigger within that plan. That we were using the strategies that we know to work for the student, and that was implemented correctly. So that's really important to look at that, to see,
So
because there can be an
does-
adjustment right there.
Okay, so in that process, I think there's an opportunity to identify, is everybody aware of what the plan is for a given student that has shown tendencies or trends or however we want to look at that?
Yes.
And if members involved in the response to a given incident during the debrief, it's identified either they didn't follow it, right? Or
yes.
didn't know of it to follow it.
Correct.
So I think both of those things are things that need to be considered as data points.
Right.
What,
That would need to be
what happens
fixed.
from there?
From there, if there's a debrief and it's found that there are staff members who need to know, who have a vested interest in that student's education, need to know that plan and don't have it, that has to be remedied right away. Ultimately, our case managers share that information. It's the principal's responsibility to make sure that they are sharing those plans with all staff that need that information. That includes specialist teachers, music teacher, art, the support staff that are there with the child, people that are supervising, all need to make sure that they know what those behavior plans are.
Have we monitored any trends or notated any trends of that not occurring, consistent?
We did have some meetings that our office, either I myself or my coordinator, came in to intervene to make sure that teams were following plans. And then we did some follow-up training. Laura did some additional crisis training and de-escalation training with teams if needed.
Were they identified specific to buildings or team members within buildings?
It was specific to teams in buildings. It would be a student-specific team. Anyone that works with, with a specific student or a plan for that student.
Okay. So we collect all this data and we have a debrief, and if IMPs are in place, we have another round of meetings in regards to that to ensure, and if any, I don't want to use the word fault, but if there's lapse in process in any of that, there's actions notated and taken to provide the proper support for the staff?
Yes.
To ensure that they are armed with the correct information in how to approach a given student or situation?
Right, if we see there's incidents, we'll check to see if there's something going on that needs support, but building principals should reach out if they need assistance as well. They're there on a day-to-day basis, so if they're struggling with a student or their team is struggling, our district office team is here to support. We can come in and provide guidance or training or.
Which you did in this past year,
Yes.
specific to one of our elementary buildings.
Yes,
And that communication goes both ways. I would assume it's the building's responsibility to reach out, but it would also be our responsibility of, hey, we're noticing an uptick here. Do you need some help?
Yes.
Is there something going on?
Yeah.
Can we come in and just meet? That would be-
we help debrief with the team, and then from there, we can see if, we just need to revisit some strategies. We need to do some dynamic practice with some of these strategies, or, it could come even down to if they need a resource or something, like an item, for purchase, if it's something, I can help with those things.
I can recall on a specific occasion being in one of our elementary buildings after an incident occurred, not knowing the incident occurred, walked in, the principal and staff were talking about it, and in that moment, given the severity of what occurred, I had them reach out directly to Katie, stop what they were doing, because there was need from the district level to intervene and work with that principal and team in order to put debrief, not only the debrief process more concrete, but intervention in place related to the behavior plan.
Okay, in that given scenario, on happenstance, you happen to be there.
Correct.
Are we confident that would have taken place had you not been there?
I don't know. I had to make the recommendation.
Okay. I think that's an opportunity for this department to ensure continual touch points into the buildings from that standpoint of
Yeah, and we have a
reminders, this is what we're here for, these are the processes. I'm assuming.
Do you want to speak to what you do monthly?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you want to speak to what your team does monthly at each building?
Yeah, I just want to say there is a process that they have to put those seclusion restraint forms into a folder. That is a folder that we take a look at to see, because we do need to monitor the numbers. And when behavior plans, for example, are put into place, there could be incidents where things, it takes time for things to be consistent. Like, there could be times when there is a safety concern and we want to make sure we follow those protocols. So sometimes the team, like, things are going in the right direction with the student. But we attend, so every month at each building, myself, the pupil services coordinator, and when available, our office manager, we attend building level special education team meetings once a month. We take over one of those meetings, and that's for PD purposes. This year we are working on, as Kim was talking about, our college and career ready IEP. So just this week we had 2 elementary meetings and the high school meeting today, where we received feedback from their PD in August, and then we are doing training within the building. So that's really responsive to what that building needs. We do have an overarching theme, but that's an opportunity for us to touch base with the building every single month. Some buildings we go to their biweekly meetings. If they invite us, I will go to both. But we are there every single month, meeting with the special education team, which includes our pupil services staff, the psychologists, the building principal. They're all in attendance to those meetings every month.
I think we can get lost in the conversation. I appreciate you sharing that process, is the amount of support that's provided into the buildings from your office. It's not a office of stat collection and
No.
accountability, yes, but not, the primary is support to the staff that are in these buildings.
Our pupil services coordinator, the majority of her time, she is meeting with teams and helping assist them with a variety of things, whether it's student specific. She was just working with a level behavior plan with a team. She's meeting with them again on Friday. Like, whatever teams need, we'll figure out between us how we can come and help support them. And if it's something that we don't have and we need to provide for them, we'll figure that out. But that's our role, is to support staff, to support kids.
Sure. These are numbers that are never going to read 0 across the board
No.
for all sorts of reasons.
Correct.
Do we cross-check our areas of incidents or volume of incidents compared to like districts? Or is that, I could see it being necessarily a slippery slope, because it would depend on the demographic of students within those buildings.
Yeah, I mean, all of these things are become public knowledge, and they publish these things. I think that year to year, it's very student specific, right? It's very, so it's going to ebb and flow, like you can see. We definitely want to have the fewest number of incidents as possible. We don't want, to get to that point, but we also are going to maintain safety for our students, all students. So making sure we have a lot of tools for staff around de-escalation and trying to get to behaviors before they escalate is our priority, to keep everyone safe. But with that, if there is an incident or something that is going to be unsafe, then we have people trained for that, so that we can keep kids safe. So to your point, I don't see it being 0 across the board, but we are always looking to make sure that we're minimizing incidents, and we don't want patterns of, we should be addressing those incidents as they come up, making sure that we're putting supports in place.
I think, and just a point for the kind of here in public realm is, when we see this, they can look at this and say, these are incidents of distraction for my student or their student, right? Or incidents of harm potentially to another student or staff member. And I think that's important to understand, that that's why some of these incidents do go to seclusion and or restraint, to minimize injury, threat of injury and or disruption
Right.
within the learning environment. And that's a delicate balance. And I think that's a lot of what your explanation is, and I think some people might get lost in some of that. of it's a balancing act of what's all right there. So I appreciate that. I know we could ask you for probably 100 more data points, right, and
Yeah.
comparisons. I would strongly, just from my understanding of the conversation, I would not want citizens to take this and say, well, surrounding District X only had this. The reality is surrounding District X may not have student with need X, Y, and Z, or 5 students with X, Y, right? We don't,
Right.
it's
And
an
5 years
impossibility
prior,
to
they may
compare.
have, and their numbers would look very different, right? I think year to year, they look different because it's not exactly the same students every single year.
I mean, I think I look at some of these numbers, right? Total, 2023, 58, 2024, 25, 21, right? If I'm just looking at these numbers, so even within our own district, and we always self-analysis on process and how we can improve and do that. But it's interesting to see the ebb and flow. And I know how these numbers are gonna float into the public by some and used for whatever context they would like. I look at it and say, these are when our staffs took appropriate actions to ensure the safety of not only the student, but the surrounding students and the staff members involved. And I'd hate to see the buildings get into a spot where they would not take action to ensure that. And I don't think that's ever the case.
Right, I think that the training that we provide gives a lot of things that would be put into place before we would move to a seclusion restraint. But if it's a safety concern, then our staff is going to follow the training that they were given and make sure that they're following the safety protocols so that the kids are safe.
Thank you. Any other discussion, questions? I know I could go on, but I'm sure people would prefer I don't. So, thank you, Ms. Cole.
Thanks.
10B, discussion only 2526 Title I report. Mr. Miziak.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to provide you with an overview of Title I and how Title I is used here in Germantown. So what Title I is it's one of the federal grants that we receive under the Every Student Achieve Act, and it's used to close achievement gaps. One of the goals of Title I is to make sure that all students receive high-quality education, and it is allocated to districts based on student need from low-income families. There are 2 different ways that those funds are distributed. So schools can qualify under 2 different ways. One of the ways is school-wide programs. And school-wide programs, they offer us a little bit more flexibility in terms of how we spend the title funds. They can be used for whole school approaches. So our response to intervention programs that we use within the school, when it's a school-wide program, those funds don't necessarily have to be tied to a specific student. They can be designated for programs used to impact students who meet certain criteria. Again, it's the same purpose for what Title I funds are for. It's to close the achievement gap, but the way in which those funds are distributed are slightly different in a school-wide program in that it doesn't have to be tied to specific students. And then the other way is a targeted assistant program. In a targeted assistant program, what this does is slightly different to the whole school. This one is designed for specific students who meet criteria. So we use identification criteria through our RTI program, so students who are scoring below the 25th percentile consistently on their math assessment, they've been identified as students who might need additional support. In addition to that, these would be students who also meet the criteria for low SES or that they've demonstrated economic need. Ways in which we can use targeted support, it can be either used in push-in support from an employee or pull-out instruction, so students would leave the classroom to receive additional instruction. There are several flexibilities that the program provides to school districts in how they identify schools. So one of the ways in which we can do it is based on district poverty average. So I'm not showing you all the different iterations of how we can identify schools. This is one that we've commonly used in Germantown, and it gives you an idea of the schools in any given school year that could qualify as a title school. So for example, in 22-23, Mack, Amy Bell, Kennedy, and Germantown all fell above the district poverty average of 13.31. So all of those schools, we could qualify them as title schools and use our title funds at all of those schools. When you do it that way, if you choose to use those funds across all of those buildings, because of how much we receive in title funding, it creates challenges for us to allocate those resources. So one of the ways in which we use these resources is to fund FTE, or teaching positions that are specifically used to support students with the identified criteria. If we were to, for example, qualify Germantown High School as a title school, there's a minimum amount of that allocation that I have to provide per student at that school. And what that does is it creates a significant amount of funding that I then have to target towards GHS, and it would take away from all of the other schools that we've identified. One of the things that I take a look at when we're thinking about how we qualify a school is the number of students who would meet those specific criteria in which we could use those funds for. So for example, this year when we send students up to GHS from the middle school, and you look at the number of students who would meet the criteria for socioeconomic status, who also meet the needs in either literacy or math with consistent MAP scores that fall below the 25th percentile, there isn't a large number of students that we're sending to the school that meet that criteria. So even though Germantown High School technically could qualify this year as a Title I school, when we're looking at students and the need at that school, it doesn't make sense for us to allocate a significant portion of those resources to that school. That doesn't mean that at Germantown High we don't look at what are the ways in which we can support students who might have or that have academic needs. We've consistently, and we've talked about it at Teaching and Learning, some of the different ways in which we've expanded programming to support students who have needs at the high school. It just doesn't make sense for us to allocate our title funds there because of the number of students there that would qualify or we could use those funds for. If we were to shift some of our classifications to a school-wide program, in that case it might give us some greater flexibility to use those funds there. But again, that would then take funds away from, in 25-26, it would take funds away from Mack and Amy Bell if we were to identify those as title schools. Because this is one of the ways in which we can qualify schools based on title status. This isn't actually the method in which we use this year to identify our title schools. One of the things that, in addition to need, that I use to look at this is the consistency of the school. So historically, for the last 3 years that I've been here, we've identified Mack and Kennedy as our title schools and used our funds at those two buildings. Kennedy this year actually just fell out of eligibility for title when we use it as district poverty average. Again, title allows us some flexibilities in how we identify schools, so I can use grade level spans and look at the poverty average across a grade level span, and when you do it that way, Kennedy does qualify as a title school. So to create some consistency in that programming, this year we identified Kennedy as a title school using that variation of how we can identify schools. If Kennedy going forward were to consistently fall out of title status, and we looked at the building and saw that there wasn't a need for that program, the program offers us in how we identify schools. But you can see that Mack consistently always, especially using this district poverty average as the way in which we identify schools, Mack consistently falls as a title school, and we we then allocate resources at a greater degree to MAC because of the fact that they have a slightly higher need at MAC versus our other schools. The services that we provide using our title funds, they're all linked to our response to intervention program. So they're used for both reading and math interventions. And those funds are allocated for staff positions that we provide in those schools. So those schools have additional staff that they can use within our response to intervention so that they can provide students additional support in reading and math using intervention materials that are of high quality to, again, close the achievement gap. There are different ways that we can monitor our progress and the needs, so how we determine that fund allocation. So this year you saw that MAC and Amy Bell both could be qualified as title schools, but when you look at, and this is from our state report card, the growth that occurred at Amy Bell last year along with the target group outcomes and the fact that Amy Bell kind of inconsistently falls into title eligibility, it made more sense to not identify Amy Bell as a title school this year. Again, we would monitor that over time to see if there were trends that we noticed that, you know, maybe there was an increase in terms of need in that building, and then we could reevaluate how we distribute those funds. But again, because MAC consistently demonstrates that level of need, plus their student data also indicates a greater level of need there, we chose to identify MAC as well, we still have MAC as a title school, but then allocate more funds to MAC to support students there. Questions for me about Title I?
Mr. Wolf?
I'm curious where the numbers come from to say a student is in poverty.
That's I'm going to get this name wrong. It's the free and reduced lunch program. So it's the number of students who would then qualify for that program.
And how do we know the student qualifies for free or reduced cost lunch program?
The family applies for a waiver to become eligible for that program.
Okay.
They have to meet certain criteria that's approved.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? That's the only data point?
For eligibility, yes.
And from the information you just presented, it looks like you're intentionally, due to MAC's consistency in that range, diverting all of our Title I funds to MAC?
MAC and Kennedy. So Kennedy historically had been identified as a school, and then if you flip to that last slide, based on growth and the target group outcomes, and target group outcomes are students who are in our lowest quartile across a number of measures. Given Kennedy's data, I chose to keep them in as a title school. Again, there are criteria in which they're eligible to be a title school. So I kept Kennedy in again this year based on need and the academic performance to allocate some funds there. Proportionally, more of our funds go to MAC than to Kennedy. It's probably 2 to 1.
Title I funding, and I'm just going off kind of a question and answer scenario here. Title I funding that this district receives, the more schools, kind of a truth or fact or fiction, I guess would be the way I'd ask to kind of go about this. The more schools we identify as in need of qualified for Title I, would we receive more money?
No. So the total amount that we receive is a fixed number. So this year, our allocation was $103,491. So with that, if I were to, under different formulas, I could identify this year as many as 4 schools. I then would distribute that same pot of money across those 4 schools. So thinking about students that have those particular needs, the needs of the school, those are some of the factors that I take into consideration to who we're identifying in any given year. We could identify all 4 of those schools, but again, the program gives us the flexibility to not identify that school in a particular year. One of the reasons I think is because of that consistency factor where we hire staff to provide those services, and if it's consistently changing, you're shifting those staff resources around on an annual basis, and that may not create consistency in programming. And again, the ultimate goal here is to impact student learning. So if we're tying those funds to the places where we see the greatest level of need in students, that seems like the best way to use those funds.
And I'll put it on, well, I'm gonna pick County Line. If you chose to identify County Line and divert funds this year, that means that would be funding not going to MAC, who consistently year over year has identified as one needed.
Correct.
So in a blimp on the map year for County Line, instead of diverting that funding for 1 year, you would monitor that, and if now, for some reason, County Line would continuously pop up, then you would have those discussions of maybe we do need to allocate, but not for a 1-year scenario?
Correct. So Rockfield would be the good example of that. So if you look across the 5 years that we've monitored Rockfield, there was 1 year that it exceeded the district poverty average, and we could have qualified Rockfield in that given year for being a title school. But because it was that 1 year blip in terms of our overall data, it wouldn't have made sense. And then in addition to that, if you looked at student performance at Rockfield and the level of growth that they've seen, again, it wouldn't make sense to allocate the funds and those resources to that building.
I think it's just looking at this information, clearly, we are diverting funding to MAC on a year-over-year basis, increasing their support from a financial capacity to support the students within that building.
Correct.
That financial investment would manifest in support staff, teaching staff, resources, programming.
Yep.
And all of them, any of the above?
The funds are used solely for teaching staff, so there are 2.5 FTE positions that we're able to fund for, or partially fund for MAC. That's a reading interventionist and a math interventionist, so it increases the level of intervention support that we can provide at that building.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, as usual, you probably covered most of it, and I was asking some rhetorical questions there, but thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
New business C, discussion and action on the Germantown School District School Resource Officer Memorandum of Understanding, Dr. Reuter and myself. Mr. Reuter, or Dr. Reuter, I should say.
Thanks, Mr. Ewert. Mr. Ewert and I met with Chief Merton, our new Germantown Police Chief, as well as Steve Kreckall, Village Administrator, and Bob Soderberg, Village Board President, this summer to review our SRO agreement with the village. I would like to highlight, we had a very great conversation, I thought, discussing the qualities of the programming, the great relationship we have between the Germantown PD and the school district. However, if you look at number 7 in the memorandum that's here, the village did propose an increase originally we have been historically at a 50-50 split in our last 2 agreements. The village did, after some conversation, propose an increase, I believe, originally at 70-30. We had a conversation related to 65-35 in year 1 of this agreement, which Ms. Altendorf, correct me if I'm wrong, is an increase of approximately $25,000 from what we're currently costing. That would be on our end with that increase from 50% to 65%. They expressed their reason why. We understand, as all public municipalities and public entities are seeing, everything is more expensive these days and cost, with less funding that is going towards those increases. So after discussion and sharing our data points on our belief of what the actual split has been over a 5-year look back, Ms. Altdorf shared that data with me, as well as their data. We did discuss and came to an agreement here that in year 1 of this agreement, it would be a 65-35 split. However, at the conclusion of this current school year, we'd revisit, and we're going to be working between the two entities to have the same tracking of hours and time and process to do that, because it was a little different. Their numbers were closer to 70-30 and ours were closer to 50-50. So we kind of met them in the middle at 65-35 and for year 1, and in year 2 we would revisit what that percentage split would be. Did I capture all of that, Mr. Ewert, from the conversations?
Yeah, it was a great conversation from the standpoint of building an understanding on both entities' needs. Obviously, it's a great relationship that we're going to continue. It's kind of a history of, it's been elevated to recently and then decreased to that 50-50. But
At one time was 75-25 and then
Yeah.
back down.
But ultimately, we kind of agreed upon, let's get a consistent data pool together of how much time are your officers spending in our buildings versus assisting the rest of the village. And whatever that comes out to, once we can agree upon how we're going to track that data. We do agree, we use an elevated number compared to the 50-50. So that's how we got to the 65-35. But we want to know if we're overutilizing the services at that point. And if that's the case, in year 2, we'll revisit it for a potential different number. But currently, it is 65-35 for the 2 years.
Yep. With the addendum that it could be changed for year 2.
Correct. So that's the approach we took. I think that's the appropriate approach we should take in it. Well, this one, we're going to have to just invest in the numbers on it and operate from that standpoint. They did bring, and we discussed this, comparables to surrounding districts and what they pay and how many officers a district of similar size uses compared to what we use. All of those topics came up in the conversation, and those will all be considered going forward. From that, I don't know if I've left anything else.
That was the only significant change. There's semantics that were cleaned up in this agreement, but item 7, where you'll see in I think the 3rd sentence in, the Village of Germantown Police Department, Germantown School District will meet following the 25-26 and 26-27 school years to review the cost sharing percentages and determine if any adjustments are necessary. That was the biggest change from previous agreements, besides the percentages.
Could you
I will
repeat?
take a motion for
So,
discussion.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was wondering if Chris could repeat that last part. I just
Oh, sure, go ahead.
missed it.
Yep, so item 7, the biggest change was the second sentence now. The Village of Germantown Police Department and Germantown School District will meet following the 25-26 and 26-27 school years to review the cost-sharing percentages and determine if any adjustments are necessary.
Okay.
So there, in this contract, there could be a scenario that it increases or decreases for year 2. Obviously, if that occurs in either direction, both the village and our board would have to approve it. But we're basically entering into the understanding that we will review it mid-contract.
Yep. And Chief Merton stopped by my office today. He was approved last night on the village's end.
So you said that we came up with kind of 2 different percentages. They came up with 70-30 and we came up with 50-50.
We were 60-40-ish.
Right. Is there like the discrepancy in that? Is there kind of something that was more glaring?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of how we are tracking, and they're tracking time in our buildings versus time out. When there's specific trainings, are those district for district purpose versus police, vice versa? So we'll work with them on very solidifying when Officer Olson or Officer Laux are at X training, that's district time or that's department time? Or if there's a need, what are the needs? Like, do we need our SROs at pre-session? This year, we said, no, that's not necessarily a need during in-service time. Is it nice to have? Yes, but, so we're going to work on their total number of days and where they're physically placed.
I think if you're looking at historical data trends too, you bring in a new officer, it requires some new training around the SRO. Usually that's on our expense.
Yeah, we paid for
But
officer.
it's their time, so if it's folded in to that, the next year, he's not, that officer, or he or she may not need that 2-week course. So now that's 2 weeks, generally probably in the summer, right out of school to get that training done. That would be school time the previous year, wouldn't be school time the following year because they'd be back in with the general pool.
Right, and that's just my question, is there some agreement as to what it should be, and
Yeah.
how do we go about making sure that is?
Yep.
Yep. An example is when the county stopped providing DARE services at Rockfield and Amyville. We paid for Officer Laux to get trained so that he could go to those schools, whereas Officer Olson was doing MacArthur and County Line, and we have the county sheriffs doing the other. So that was training time on our end, which would elevate the percentage beyond 50% as a practical example.
Right, but those are gonna be outliers, that's not gonna
Right,
be.
but
Yeah,
let's say
and
we have a
that's-
new DARE.
That's where
right.
some of this discrepancy,
Yep.
based off of their historical data, ours,
Sure.
and what we're factoring in. The reality is, it was a fantastic conversation from an understanding standpoint for both parties. This has been an interesting, I think this is the second time around. This is the first time I got to participate directly in the conversation, but it does seem to be a relationship that's in a really good spot from understanding and some give and take. I can tell you the 65-35, looking at some of the surrounding school districts, that's the minimum that they're paying, and some are paying elevated above that. So it's an interesting conversation that plays out with who bears the responsibility to provide those services, but how much service are we asking of the department above and beyond, versus, because at the end of the day, we're a community entity, just like any other business, and they could have a problem business, right, that demands a bunch of their time, and it's going to require some action within the village, and potential charges could incur as repeat offenders and those types of things. And we realize the amount of security we're asking as a district that's firmly committed to that security standpoint.
Sure. I guess training is somewhat of a gray area, because no matter what you're training for, one would complement the other, I would think.
Yeah, there's there's 4 state mandatory yearly trainings every law enforcement officer has to go through to stay certified. Those officers are going to need to do that anyways. I don't see that being a district training, although they do need it to keep their certification. Ours are more specific to a DARE, SRO.
There's a Washington
coach.
County juvenile group that Officer Olson is a part of that helps connect us with the county and services that would be our time because it's service-based. There's an SRO network through CISA. So we're just looking at all of those, like what are the needs versus, we could send just like teachers, administrators, trainings galore, but like what's the sole purpose of why we're here and understanding the days. And we know the more they're visible in our schools, the better relationship they're having with kids, which dissipates bad behavior.
I think the conversation stemmed around what is essential training to be an officer in general, and that's theirs, and what is essential training to be a school resource officer within our buildings.
Right, and I understand that, but
Yeah.
it's just, like I said, one complements the other, because
Oh.
you'll benefit, they'll benefit out in the field, whatever training they have through the district. The district will benefit from whatever training that they've had as an officer. That's just my point, like, you know.
That's why it should be 50-50, right?
There you go. That's what I'm saying.
Wrong. I would have taken a motion for discussion, but I guess we jumped into that, so I'll take a motion, then we can have some more discussion if need be.
Motion to approve the Germantown School District Resource Officer Memorandum of Understanding.
Mr. Barney with the motion, Mr. Voyer with the second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes. New business, 10, discussion action overnight travel training, or travel request for GHS Science. Miss Stacy, and I apologize on that. Steckland and Ms. Griffin Wenzel. Thank you for both coming. And we've talked about this trip once before, I think.
Yeah, so our goal is to kind of get students to travel abroad while they're in high school, before they get sucked into all the demands of life and have to worry about PTO and stuff like that. But so we've got a trip this spring break that we started last spring, and now we're proposing to do another one next year right away. Specifically for the purpose of trying to get opposite to when band goes on their big trip. That way students don't have to really make a choice between going on the band trip or going on this one. They could possibly go on a big event each year that way, instead of two big demanding events in 1 year. So that's our ultimate goal, is we'd like to do back-to-back years, and then we'd be every other year from here on out, trying to offer up some sort of science education spring break trip. Yeah. Do you want me to go into anything? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some questions. Is it the same trip, or is it going to be different?
It's through the same tour company, EF Tours, so it's the same in terms of we have a person helping us facilitate all the travel arrangements, and we have all the security and safety measures in place. They are our point of contact if anything goes wrong on the trip, but it's a different destination. So this one would be to Belize, versus this spring break is Galapagos Islands, essentially. But so yeah, Belize would be more a focus on a conservation trip. They'll get to snorkel at the coral reefs. It's the second largest coral reef in the world. So they'll get to go snorkel there and be a part of the studies on the reefs and those ecosystems and how they're doing over time, and they'll get to help collect data and stuff on their conservation efforts there. And then they'll also get to do a lot of touristy things. We'll go to the Mayan archaeological digs or sites. We'll get to go to the rainforest and zip line through there, and just be a part of the culture in Belize.
Is there a cap as to the number of students or parents that can go, or is it open to everybody? Does something qualify or disqualify a student from going?
So ultimately, we want to offer it up to current freshmen to juniors, so because it's next year, so that'd be sophomores to seniors actually going. The tour company has 45, 36 is there, that's kind of their sweet spot in terms of a manageable size group, and then actually getting a group that size on a tour together, and not having to split our school up and be rotating amongst the different things. We could stay as a cohesive unit. So that's kind of their recommendation in terms of staying, for traveling, the plane flights, the hotel stays then, and then the buses and the boats to travel. We take a boat one day, it'd be very cool. Yeah.
So, and I guess it would be a good problem to have, if you have more than the 35, are you doing a lottery system, first come, first serve? Or
I think it's first come, first serve. Yeah, it really is. When we have our meeting, we kind of talk about that. And there's a good gauge of, this was our first time this year kind of going through the process, and it was a really good view of how it worked in terms of people could mark their level of interest ahead of time before we even had our informational meeting, and then at the informational meeting, you could tell how many signed up right away, and we could keep communicating whether it was going to fill up really fast or not. So that was nice. Yeah.
And then I guess my last question would be student parent to ratio, or
it's
chaperone.
automatically a 6-to-1 adult to student ratio on the trip. Yeah, we've done no parents, just, I know she's been on trips with other school districts with her own children through the same thing. And parents tend to focus on their one child and have a harder time I don't know, seeing the big picture. So we're trying to keep it like more a school environment, I guess. So
Oh, I made the trip of lifetimes for sure.
I know, like that's what, I know there's a lot of parents that want to go.
Right? Yeah. Well, it just said parents and students at GHS.
Yeah. Oh, did it? Oh, sorry. Other questions? I don't know.
Actually, one, it's more for up here, though. So how does the board ambassador program fit into this sort of thing?
Oh,
You are assigned to the high school.
But so is Mr. Loth.
Yeah, I think
okay.
the,
You guys.
I think the board ambassadors are gonna have to go on this trip.
we need a board ambassador in our hydroponics that we started. And what else? Our backpacking trip.
I hear that's for,
Yeah, our Porky's trip would be cool. I don't know, yeah.
how many students did we fill the Galapagos trip?
We did not this year, so we're taking, is it 17 right now? Maybe a few more. We have a deadline, I think this Saturday is our like deadline for signing up for a discount anyway. But a big part of that we like personally believe is the fact that band has a huge trip this winter break. So like trying to afford that and go on like a spring break trip like back to back like that is a lot for a family. And it's kind of the same pool of students that are really interested in traveling, so.
And
yeah.
I know that, Eric, you had mentioned that the last time, we were here is to try to get this trip opposite of band so more students could go. And so we definitely took that to heart and did not want to interfere with their ability to travel. Because the next band trip would be 28. Yeah, and that would be domestic, because they go every other year, domestic and then international, so, yeah.
Something tells me this first trip, when these kids come back, you'll probably have a lot more signing up for the next trip.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Yeah. So that's what I've done the backpacking trip for summer school. I've been part of that process, and that's what we've seen too. Is like the students who come back and then they talk about it, and then every year we've got more and more interest, and so it's really cool.
Yeah, I would be shocked if it doesn't grow, that's for sure. But I do appreciate the approach of, let's get it off years from the others so we can provide that opportunity for the students to go, so. Mr. Loaf, I think, did you have?
Oh, I was just gonna comment that, thank you for doing this. This sounds like a great opportunity for our students, and I'm sure they'll learn a lot that they otherwise wouldn't have. So, thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the discussion by Germantown High School and educational tours with parents and students at GHS regarding a science trip to Belize.
Second.
Mr. Boyer with the motion, Mr. Brown with the second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, safe travels.
Thank you, guys.
And that brings me to one final motion I'll hear.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Mr. Pog with the motion, Mr. Boyer with the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes.
Yes,